The story begins as Nate Wilcox calls himself the best salesman around. Nate claims selling cars is really about solving customer problems. He tells a teenager the minivan will make him memorable. Nate brags he was homecoming king after driving one in school. Nate's awards make his life look like the American dream. Nate calls himself the breadwinner while Katie stays home with their girls. He jokes that he handles work while Katie handles life. At home, Hadley and Gracie bicker while studying spelling words. A color-coded system Hadley made runs their whole household. That night, Nate realizes too late that it is trash night. He admits he sometimes forgets his one chore around the house. Gracie secretly watches a boys' dance video on her phone. Sam asks how much a horse costs, and Nate says too much. Katie reminds Sam that horses are off the table for their family. The kids joke that their family can only afford goldfish. Katie shows the family her chore reminder invention, the star minder. Nate praises Katie's talent in front of the kids. Katie reminds Nate about dinner at the Ashfords tonight. At work, Nate boasts he is killing it on the sales floor. Peyton reveals he is changing tactics to beat Nate this year. At the cookout, Connor complains his renovation contractor was a nightmare. Connor shows off the disc golf course in his yard. The next day, Connor accidentally hits Nate with a disc golf throw. Angela jokes her company just beat a ridiculous lawsuit. Neighbors Connor and Angela Ashford brag about their assistant, Keith. Keith even remembered to send Connor flowers for him last year. Nate jokes that Katie has her own assistant too, the star minder. Angela tells Katie her company could give the star minder a booth. Katie asks if Nate would mind her pursuing it seriously. Nate tells her to go for it, whatever makes her happy. Katie pitches the star minder to the Shark Tank panel. She says the tabs help kids finish their morning tasks together. Katie reveals she has sold 2,000 units from her living room. The sharks doubt a stay-at-home mother can run a company too. One shark assumes Katie has a nanny, but she has none. The panel asks whether Nate could take over the household instead. The sharks bring a bewildered Nate onto the stage to answer. The sharks mock Nate for holding a donut on stage. Nate tells the sharks he is a top Toyota salesman. Investor Lori offers Katie $100,000 for 20% of her company. Lori makes the deal contingent on Nate taking time off work. Nate agrees on the spot, surprising everyone watching. Nate claims he could handle 80% of Katie's work. Katie doubts Nate even knows their laundry detergent brand. Katie and Nate accept the deal, and the family celebrates. Katie must fly to Korea, worried to leave the kids first time. Nate tells her 2 weeks is nothing to worry about. Katie hands off breakfast duty to Nate before she leaves. Nate declares breakfast the easiest meal of the day. He guesses wrong about where the spaghetti goes in the kitchen. The toaster breaks, and Nate blames it rather than himself. Nate serves unwanted eggs. Hadley and Gracie both refuse to eat what Nate makes them. The girls tease that Nate is basically their new mother. Nate insists he can handle the family's busy morning routine. Katie warns the school pickup schedule shifts on different weekdays. Katie leaves Nate a detailed command center of schedules. Nate admits the command center has always intimidated. Katie warns him to wash towels separately from the clothes. She flags Hadley's overfilled volcano project for him to check. The family says a tearful goodbye to Katie at the door. Sam asks if Nate could go to Korea instead of Katie. Katie promises she will be back before the girls know it. Nate cannot find the house keys on the way out. He jokes about putting Sam through a back window instead. Driving to school, Nate admits he does not know the routes. He asks the girls to say their school names out loud. Sam secretly dials Katie to prove that Nate is bluffing. Nate insists he knows the schools, despite the ringing phone. Sam finally admits she was only pretending to call their mom. At the dealership, Nate visits just to feel good at something. Dan tells Nate his employee photo is already gone. Dan warns that leave still costs Nate his floor position. Rival salesman Peyton takes over as Dan's top guy. Security stops Nate from taking a company gift as he leaves. Nate wanders a grocery aisle, unsure which eggs his kids eat. A clerk explains pastured and cage-free eggs while Nate struggles. Nate asks if there are eggs that come already made. Nate calls his own mother, awkwardly asking her to help. He offers her 12 or 13 nights instead of 1 or 2. A roofer, Keegan Jones, shows up saying Katie called about the roof. Keegan says he came to prove his availability rather than call back. Nate hires Keegan on the spot without checking with Katie. Rushing to school pickup. Nate seems unfamiliar with the routine. Sam's teacher warns Nate that Sam is hugging every classmate. The teacher introduces Nate to the bubble of consent. She explains, kids need permission before entering another kid's bubble. Hadley comes home upset that her friend spelled a word she missed. She resolves to study even harder for the spelling bee. Gracie is with a boy. Nate loudly embarrasses her at pickup. Hadley reveals Gracie shaves her legs every night for that boy. Sam invites Brian over for dinner, embarrassing Gracie. Peter delivers pizza and befriends the Wilcox family. Nate begins Sam's elaborate nightly hug-counting bedtime ritual. Nate forbids Sam from hugging classmates. Nate tells her to show love a different way instead. Hadley studies late for the spelling bee against Nate's orders. The next morning, Nate oversleeps and scrambles the household awake late. Nate wonders if the family is secretly running an unofficial car wash. Katie calls to check how Nate is managing the house. Nate admits he cannot remember the roofer's name. Nate's dad visits and immediately naps on the couch. Nate's father makes himself comfortable at the house. Nate brags about handling the household's endless chores alone. He jokes their sprays smell like candy. At school pickup, the other moms meet Nate for the first time. Connor teases that Nate is now the funny dad on campus. Peyton warns Nate to stop talking with the other kids' moms. He reminds Nate that his texts have gone completely unanswered. Peyton demands Nate stay away and hang out with him instead. Meanwhile in Korea, Katie stress tests plastics for the StarMinder. The girls video call Katie at the factory to say hello. Nate serves the girls pizza for breakfast again. Katie video calls to check on the roofer and Nate's stress. Nate insists everything is fine and he does not need help. Katie warns they are both growing into new, harder roles. Nate's mother leaves, glad she finally saw him awake. The family holds a meeting about who keeps using all the towels. Hadley and Gracie each admit to using only one towel a day. Sam shocks everyone by admitting she has never used a towel. Nate demands to know who is really using 8 towels. Keegan interrupts, needing to leave early for a mom's line dancing night. Nate realizes he never called Gracie's other sleepover parents. Jane arrives, and Nate realizes there is more than one guest. Gracie has the girls take over Nate's sleepover with makeovers. During makeovers, Nate is startled by an unfamiliar nose-waxing routine. The girls count down before ripping wax from his nose. Jane's wax accident leaves Nate bleeding, and she apologizes. Keegan admits it is normal for a roofer to work at night. He warns Nate he heard kids fighting through holes in the roof. Keegan insists an interpersonal issue is unfolding inside the house. He warns that girls can do lasting psychological damage to each other. Keegan warns that quiet upstairs means the girls have turned mean. Nate dismisses the warning, insisting Keegan is overreacting about a sleepover. He says Katie handles upstairs. Nate just makes Sundays for tonight, with no Katie to help. Nate finds Hadley in tears over the coming spelling bee. The girls fear their friendship will not survive one of them losing. Nate tells the girls trophies matter less than being there. He proves it by failing to spell a hard word himself. The girls outspell Nate easily, proving his own point for him. Nate tells the girls their worth was never about winning a trophy. The sleepover ends peacefully. The girls still friends. Nate calls the whole sleepover surprisingly easy to manage. Nate finds Sam soaked. Her invisible horse drank from the tank. Overwhelmed, Nate vents to a young driver named Peter. Nate doubts he's cut out for this, unsure what a salesman's worth. Peter says Nate looks like the father he hasn't seen in years. He admits, Nate looks exactly like his father did before he left. Nate finds his donut video viral. Peter loves his humiliation. Katie finally returns home, and the girls tackle her with hugs. The girls tease that everything now smells different since Katie left. Katie says lasagna, not just pizza, is dinner tonight. Katie shares she already has distribution and a first order lined up. Lori calls it dinner. Stores want the StarMinder by month's end. Nate faces Katie's upcoming 2-week trip. The girls, just having hugged her hello, are devastated she's leaving again. Katie insists the opportunity could change all their lives. Sam asks what if their lives were already fine. Nate promises the anxious family that everything is fine. Katie gives Nate a digital calendar with a cartoon cat. She can now update the calendar remotely, with daily notes. Hadley calls the 3 girls orphans now that both parents are busy. The girls find suspicious stains that still will not come out. The girls catch Nate perfuming dirty clothes instead of washing them. Sam realizes that explains why her clothes have smelled like Katie. Nate blames the endless mountain of towels for his shortcuts. He admits he can never get past towels to start on clothes. The girls insist his system is failing where their mothers worked. Nate admits he cannot truly replace Katie. He declares a new plan he calls the Dad Era. The Dad Era means teamwork, not copying Katie exactly. Nate admits his own goal is simply returning to selling cars. Gracie shaved her legs with butter. The house lacks everything now. Hadley reports the silverware drawer is filled with dry spaghetti. They realize every piece of clothing in the house is now dirty. Nate declares only one store can fix every problem at once. They head to Walmart together to restock as a team. The family stocks up on 2 weeks of clothes and supplies. Nate plans to throw everything out and start fresh after 2 weeks. Back home, Nate sets up an incentive board like a dealership. Chores now earn perks, and each girl logs low supplies. Nate designates a parts counter for hair ties and loose items. He welcomes the girls to the newly named Wilcox family dealership. Nate quietly returns to the dealership to sell cars again. Peyton is shocked that Nate has dared to come back to work. He tells coworkers not to worry, his family is handled. Nate coaches Gracie to dress plainly to avoid the boy. He also tells her to take a different route to class. Back at work, Nate toasts to work-life balance with coworkers. Sam still will not stop kissing kids. Katie learns by phone. The neighbor explains the horse has not been the same since. A neighbor cuts Sam's horse deal to $50. The deal requires Sam to stop kissing kids. Sam agrees to blow kisses to the horse instead. Sam's teacher confirms the hugging stopped, crediting Nate's bubble talk. Hadley's teacher calls, hinting Hadley may be able to skip a grade. The toilet clogs again, and Nate assigns Hadley to fix it herself. Hadley earns a week of cupcakes for handling the repair. Hadley's bee and Nate's ceremony collide. He promises to attend both. Hadley spells duopoly correctly to open the competition. The bee moves ahead as Hadley advances past early competitors. Hadley correctly spells systematic to advance further. Dan mocks Nate's absence, certain he abandoned the dealership again. Dan warns Peyton that Nate never truly cared about the dealership. Hadley keeps spelling words correctly as the rounds continue. Unfamiliar with bees, Nate learns rounds continue until one speller remains. Nate steps away, leaving Hadley's seat unattended briefly. Nate arrives at the ceremony celebrated as Salesman of the Year. At the dealership, Peyton introduces Nate to a visiting manager. The manager mistakes Nate for a friend of a Shark Tank star. The manager pitches Nate his invention, hoping for an introduction. Nate admits he barely knows the investor from one television episode. Peyton warns Nate, he seems to be acting strangely today. The spelling bee narrows to its final 2 contestants. Hadley reaches the final 2 competitors in the bee. Nate leaves the spelling bee for his award ceremony. On stage, Nate declares that dads can have it all. He promises his kids' faces will be his real prize. Hadley loses the bee because Nate was not there. Hadley says she only wanted him present, not a trophy. She reminds him he told her not to obsess over contests. Devastated, Hadley asks Nate to just take her home. Nate realizes he does not know where Gracie even is. Nate wraps up the celebration and heads for home. Driving home, they notice teens partying at a decorated house. At home, Nate finds Gracie secretly hosting Brian and friends. Gracie claims she is only ruining her own supposed study group. Gracie accuses Nate of lying to keep them distracted. She reveals Katie does not even know Nate went back to work. Nate goes out and finds the new horse motionless. Nate panics, thinking the horse has died. The horse wakes alive and bolts loose across the yard. The horse drags Nate through the house as it bolts. The frightened horse bolts and smashes through the house. Nate lures the horse back with a slice of pizza. The rampaging horse crashes through the roof. Nate manages to calm the horse and checks everyone is safe. Gracie mutters that horses are apparently just part of their lives now. Katie calls with news that Lori will join her live stream tomorrow. Lori chose the Wilcox house because it is where the invention began. Nate realizes the stream is set at the very house in ruins. He tells himself he must fix everything before Katie finds out. Keegan warns the repair takes time and money, and could still fail. That night, Nate camps out with the girls in the wreckage. He calls the space heater their makeshift campfire for the night. He says what matters most is facing this together. Nate tries a scary campfire story to distract the girls. In Nate's story, a bear tears the pretend house apart. Sam interrupts, having overheard that the story was invented. Nate apologizes to the girls for the mess he made. He blames himself for missing Hadley's spelling bee entirely. He tells Gracie her party only copied the bad example he set. He admits his easy love was never the same as real work. Nate decides a salesman's only way out is to sell. Nate awkwardly tries to convince Peyton that he respects him. He asks Peyton to lend him his house for just one day. Nate offers Peyton his hard-won Titan tickets for a huge favor. Peyton is moved that Nate finally asked him for help. Peyton then reveals the offer of tickets was only a prank. Peyton reminds Nate he once used his house as a kid's hotel. Peyton lists every hangout invite that Nate has ignored. Peyton warms to Nate, calling the two of them fellow stay-at-home dads. He admits no other dad has ever hung out with him. Peyton agrees to lend Nate his house after they shake hands. Nate lays out a 5-step plan to disguise a neighbor's house. Step 1 is controlling the car that picks up Katie and Lori. Step 2 is redirecting the camera crew to the wrong address. Step 3 is filling Connor's house with the family's own photos. Step 4 asks the girls to perform loving affection on camera. Step 5 hopes the plan ends in a happy ending for everyone. Sam wonders why she's part of the plan. Nate brushes it off. Meanwhile, Katie and Lori's flight is arriving into Nashville. The girls hang family photos through Connor's borrowed house. Hadley scatters spaghetti, hiding new nail holes to fake their house. Katie and Lori's flight lands earlier than the family planned. Nate sends Peter to intercept them at the airport. Peter goes to the wrong terminal, confusing departures for arrivals. By the time Peter circles back, they are already driving off. Nate accidentally causes a fender bender trying to stop a car ahead. The car turns out to be Walter, Katie's father, driving them. Walter blames Nate for tailgating and causing the crash himself. Walter offers them a ride despite the crash. Nate tries reaching Peter, distracted moonlighting as a rideshare driver. Peter abandons Nate for a paying rideshare fare instead. Nate overhears Lori practicing her live stream introduction in the car. Walter drives toward the wrong neighborhood. Confused, it looks unfamiliar. Lori reassures Katie that Walter has redecorated the house beautifully. Walter tells Katie and Lori not to be nervous about the pitch. Nate finally arrives, just as the live stream is about to start. He crashes in and tells Katie welcome home. Katie is confused about why they are at the Ashford's house. Pressed, Nate admits he went back to work. He confesses he bought Sam a horse to stop the hugging. Nate admits the horse tore through their real house. He tells Katie their actual roof collapsed from the chaos. Katie is hurt that Nate kept lying instead of telling her. Nate begs her not to let her dream die in the bushes. Katie agrees to go inside, warning they are not done talking. The girls tackle Katie with hugs the moment she arrives. Katie begins the live stream inside Connor's borrowed house. The live stream begins with Katie describing her invention story. Katie's daughters praise the Starminder for helping them daily. The live audience loves seeing the united Wilcox family. Lori praises Nate for maintaining such comfortable eye contact on camera. Connor bursts in live, blurting that it is his house. Rather than keep lying, Nate admits this is not their house. Nate confesses their real house is currently an unlivable wreck. He admits copying Katie's life has been hardest. Nate reveals he gave away his Titan tickets to fix things. He tells Katie being the breadwinner was never all he had. Nate says failing to become Katie made him a better him. Nate hands the live stream to Katie to explain her invention. Katie steps forward to show the world her invention herself. The family embraces, relieved the truth finally came out. Finally, Nate gets the house looking good again. Nate invites his youngest to help him paint. She reaches up and adds her own brushstrokes. At the game, Nate hands out snacks to each daughter. Katie and Nate coordinate next week's spelling practice and horse ride. Nate leaves Toyota to become Katie's top salesman instead. The Wilcox family settles into a new balance, running things together. At a Titans game, the Jumbotron honors Peyton as top salesman. The Jumbotron then celebrates Katie for her Shark Tank fame. Sam proudly cheers that the woman on the screen is her mom.